And it's time for another segment of Good Vibes. I'm Martin Foss, along with Debbie Cox Danova, and we have a doozy of a segment for you today. Everybody who's ever had a date should watch this program because we're talking about dating confidently, something that everybody's thought of, huh, Debbie?
Everyone has thought of it at least once. And if you're at home and you're already in a relationship, please share this with someone who's in the dating field because
Hmm.
honestly, we all know how to love very naturally. Like we
Hmm.
come into the world that way. But modern dating is relatively new, right? Like only about since 1890 is when
Hmm.
we started dating in this way. In the past, there would be arranged marriages or a marriage of convenience of some sort. And research from Stanford shows that in 2017, since 2017, the number one way that people are dating is online. And we certainly don't know that by nature. So we're having to learn how to actually connect to other human beings in the dating field. It does offer some benefits because especially when you're talking about the thin dating margin where there's like, maybe part of the LGBTQ community or over 50 years old, the dating pool is kind of small. And so it's like, how do you know where to find your people if not online? And it makes it a lot easier with dating apps. So this information comes from Logan Ury, who is a Harvard dating scientist researcher for the dating app Hinge. And she wrote a book, How Not to Die Alone. And she has a lot of really great research-based ideas that are helpful for people who are out in the dating field, the common problems that people are facing, the common mistakes that they're making, and especially since online dating has become a thing.
Hmm.
So there are three categories of people nowadays when it comes to dating, three ways that people are relating to dating in an unrealistic way. And she puts them into three categories. There is the romanticizer who has unrealistic expectations of what dating should look like.
Hmm.
So the romanticizer might think that, oh, I'm just going to know when I see them. I'm just going to walk about my life, and
Hmm.
if that person comes, and I know, or they might think, okay, I thought my one soulmate is just going to like I'm just going to go to work and they're going to find me there, or they think I don't want to date on a dating app because they're really attached to the how we met story, right? They want a
Hmm.
more romantic. But again, since 2017, this is the number one way people are meeting each other. Then we have the maximizer, very common. The maximizer, especially nowadays, because Logan Ury says that people are doing something called relation shopping, right? So they create this list, this checklist of things that they want, and then they go about trying to fulfill that checklist the way they would trying to find like something on Amazon, a shopping list.
Hmm.
So she really wants to move people away from relation shopping to relationshipping, actually finding someone who doesn't just meet a checklist of superficial ideals, but who actually helps the person create a happy relationship afterward. And we're going to talk about what that actually means, okay? But the maximizer is someone who is constantly trying to up level. They're constantly in the dating field looking for better and better and better. And we'll talk about why that is actually that can actually be detrimental to the maximizer. It's always this idea that like there's kind of a Frankenstein in their mind, like I want to combine the smarts from this person from my past with the looks of this other person, with the family of this other person. So as they move forward, they're
Hmm.
collecting this perfect person in their mind, and they keep on dating to find that person. And of course, the dating pool gets smaller as they move forward.
People have asked me over the last few years. After my last girlfriend, they go, "Well, what are you looking for?" I said, "Well, I can tell you this. I don't know exactly what I want, but I know damn well what I don't
That's
want."
exactly right.
So once you have identified what you don't want,
Yeah.
it makes it a little easier.
It does, and especially when we're talking about the way that they make you feel in the relationship,
Hmm.
right? And so that brings me to the third and the final category, which is the hesitators. Now, the hesitators are not dating at all. They have a story that they're not ready for dating until I get a better job, until I deal with this situation in my life. And so they fill in the blanks with I'm not ready yet. I will be ready when, right?
Hmm.
And really at the heart of it, the hesitators are scared of sharing their vulnerabilities because
Hmm.
they think that their vulnerabilities make them undateable. So we'll talk about how vulnerability actually is a magnetizer. People think they have to show up with this perfect impression, but in actuality, when you show up perfectly, people don't know how to connect to that. They are
Hmm.
very aware, like we talked about, of their own
Hmm.
imperfections. And it makes them feel as though they are not connecting to you or that they're not being accepted with their own imperfections. And what research has found is that when you actually put your vulnerabilities out there, when you share what makes your, when you share your stories versus facts, right? Like
Hmm.
about what, the baggage that you have that you bring to the table. It's about finding the compatibility in your particular baggages. Each person comes with their own
Hmm.
baggage. Is our baggage compatible or not?
As we go to the break, it's funny. I have all kind of different friends that started dating early. Some started dating later, and the ones that get along, some of them have very peculiar relationships.
Mhm.
Others have very confrontational relationships.
Yes.
Others, you never heard them argue in 40 years
Uh-huh.
kind of relationships.
Yeah.
But it's all about choosing a partner. I mean, I've learned that some couples love to argue. They banter.
That we will talk about that. That's the anxious avoidant loop, which we talked about this,
Yeah.
the attachment styles, right?
They banter, and everybody around them's going, "What the hell?
It's
Come on, cut it
uncomfortable,
out." But
right?
but but they're fine.
Exactly. And they've come to know that that is what love looks like.
Yeah.
And so what she was talking about is if you want an actual good experience, you're going to need to look for the heroes in dating, which is the securely attached attachment styles. Otherwise, you end up in an anxious avoidant loop. The anxious, scared that they're going to be abandoned. The avoided feeling that they're going to be smothered. And so there's always this hot and cold kind of
Hmm.
thing going on, this roller coaster, and it makes for a bad experience of dating. And it actually zaps lots of energy that you could use toward having a wonderful life.
I always hear as we go to the break, I want my freedom, but I want somebody in my life. Okay, balance it.
Right,
All right,
exactly.
we'll be right back. Don't go away. Great topic with Debbie Cox DeNova on Good Vibes. We'll be right back. Today's social media segment is brought to you by Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality. All right, we are back. Dating confidently. That's the topic today on Good Vibes with Debbie Cox DeNova. And we've been talking about a lot of things, but as we get older, and then you can see young couples, and I know we all do it as older people now. We look at them and go, that ain't gonna last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
are they gonna be married for 50 years?
Yeah.
Or it's sort of easy to spot when you on the catbird seat.
Exactly. And so you really want to be able to recognize, first of all, the anxious avoidant loop is the most common thing, especially when you see these fire and ice relationships, right? You're wanting to select for a secure relationship, which if you're used to love feeling like this anxious avoidant loop, where it's like, I chase after you and you disconnect and try to go the opposite way,
Mhm.
then the secure relationship can look very boring. Like
Mhm.
because you're not associating that with something that's good.
Mhm.
And the reason, if you find yourself always, if you're an anxiously attached person, it's usually the female, but it can be both, right? If you find yourself anxiously attached and always going for the one who's kind of cold, like hot and cold, there's a scientific reason. And actually, research comes from B.F. Skinner, and imagine you have two pigeons, right? Pigeon number one, when they hit a lever, food comes out every single time. Okay. Pigeon number two, at first, same thing, hits a lever, and every single time food comes out. Okay. So then in the first one, you have this continuous reward schedule for pigeon number one. Every single time they hit the lever, the food comes out.
Mhm.
Pigeon number two, after a little while, they start making it partial reward schedule. So sometimes the food comes out when they press the button, and
Mhm.
sometimes they have to press it 5 times, sometimes 20 times.
Mhm.
So what they found is that when they take the food away, what happens with pigeon number one with the continuous reward schedule is the pigeon will hit the lever a few more times and then give up. With the partial reward schedule, the pigeon will hit that lever until it falls from fatigue. Okay. And the reason why is because a partial reward schedule is actually really addictive. It's the same reason why people get addicted to gambling,
Mhm.
right? It's because,
I might win.
right, I might win, right? So when you have an avoidant person who kind of gives you some attention sometimes they text you back right away, but then other times they're cold, it actually creates this almost this addictive quality to that person. Like, I have to prove myself. If I get, they must be better than me. I've got it. And so people find themselves in this loop. And what Logan Ury was saying is that you need to normalize to yourself someone who's consistent, who's actually sending you direct signals that they're actually interested in you for a long time, that they know how to fight she talks about how you're actually going to fight. Like 65%, according to Gottman
Mm-hmm.
Institute, 65% of the arguments between couples are perpetual, meaning they
Mm-hmm.
just keep going on and on. So you need somebody that you fight well with, that you directly communicate needs and desires. And so what she was talking about is this is especially good for the maximizers who just continuously date and trying to go up and up, and they're having a hard time. There's something called the secretary formula. And this is from a book called The Algorithms to Live By. And the secretary formula is this. If you're trying to hire a secretary at your company, you go for 100 interviews, okay, and you're not allowed to go back. So 37% of the way through, you choose your benchmark. So in other words, if you're selecting for your 100 interviews, the first 37, you stop and you look back, who's the very best candidate? And that becomes your benchmark. From that point forward, you look for someone who's better than your benchmark, and then you stop there. So this is a formula to help you choose instead of perpetually dating. Same thing in dating, okay? So you go through 37, and she said for example, if you're in the dating field from the age 18 to 40, that would put you at 26.1 years old, where you look backward and you go, who's the best one? And you choose that bench as a benchmark, and then you date until you meet someone better than that person. You stop there and try to build a life with this person. This keeps you from that maximizer loop where you're just continuously
Mm-hmm.
dating endlessly. The pool's getting smaller, right? And there's always that fear of like, well, if I choose this person, what if somebody better is around the corner?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if I keep going, then what if I leave the best one behind,
You got to
right?
know when you have, like, I'll give you this example. I call Joni my work wife,
Yeah.
and I'm not doing nothing behind her husband's back because he knows it, and we laugh about it. But trust and time.
Yeah.
She's been with me a long time. So if she walks in my office and says, look, I think you ought to handle this way, out of respect and out of experience and out of trust,
Mm.
I'll listen to her.
Yep.
Doesn't mean I always agree,
Yep.
but she has the floor. At least she has the floor to tell me that. I think that's where relationships need to be.
Absolutely, yes, and that's again, you're selecting for how you actually feel within the relationship. So if you're on a date with someone, and they can meet all the check boxes, right? They could be the
Mm.
perfect height. And she said this is really ridiculous, especially in the United States. Women, especially for some reason, they hit the filters are at 6 foot or higher. And she said only 16% of men are 6 foot or higher. So you've got 84% of the men that you're just disqualifying. And those filters on your dating apps are like the bouncers for your club. You're not letting those guys in. And that could actually be someone who makes you feel really happy. And so she said, when you're on a date with someone, first of all, start opening up your filters a little bit. Like try to disprove to yourself, because more than likely it's someone that surprises you that you end up with. And it's really someone who makes you feel good. So on that date, and rather than like, oh, they look good, they're the right height, all of those things, how are they making you feel? Are you getting more interested with time? Is your energy going up or down? Because you have to think the person that you're going to end up with, the version of you that they're bringing out, that's the version of you that you're going to live with for the next 50 years plus whatever you guys end up staying together. So you really want somebody you can have fun with, that you can go through tough times with, and they emotionally regulate well, that you argue well, that you navigate experiences, someone that you can trust
Mm-hmm.
and that you can rely on.
I ran into a young lady downtown at the event the other night, and I know her family well. Asked about a bar friend. She goes, "Yeah, I'm dating someone, but we're best friends." I went, "And
That's
that's a
perfect.
plus."
Yeah, absolutely. You want somebody that you're best friends with. That's perfect.
Great topic. By the way, I'm 6'1". All right, we'll see you again next week on another episode of Good Vibes.